In the 20 minutes that I have, I would like to share a bit in terms of the current journey, transformative journey that AirAsia is going through, and how we are embracing and enabling technology and AI in trying to achieve the end state that we desire. So I think this, you might have seen this being coined quite a number of times in many materials across AirAsia, that we are more than just an airline, and the whole epicenter of AirAsia 3.0. I would like to take a bit of time to just give the context in terms of what is AirAsia 3.0 from our definition, and why we are positioning ourselves that way, and how the elements of technology, digital and AI is very crucial for us to achieve that. Well, traditionally, airlines, you operate planes, multiple planes, you fly people from A to Z, and A to B, and for a low-cost carrier like us, you charge several things in between, which what we call in the airline terms ancillary. You want bags, you want food on board, and things like that. So that will still remain from an AirAsia 3.0 perspective. Airline will still remain as the first bucket, as you can see on the far left. Airline will still be there, and currently we have 9 AOCs across 6 countries, operating in various jurisdictions. But what has changed is airlines would no longer just be the core business of AirAsia. It will still be an integrator, it will still be an enabler, but we have moved to a model where it's asset light. Most of the aircrafts now we no longer own. We lease them. We come up with various structure to make it as efficient as possible. It's all about extracting all this data of everyone that flies into that airline, everyone that flies from A to B, and how do we use that to amplify our revenue gain, to amplify what we can work from the entire ecosystem. I move to the further right, the second bucket, which is within the AirAsia family now, what we call Red Bit Ventures. So traditionally, this started as an ancillary business within the AirAsia group. So, like I mentioned earlier, food, baggage, and whatnot. But as we evolve, we realize there's more to it. It can stand alone as a business. For example, teleport is logistics. The fact that we operate, we run 9 different airlines, traveling from various places within the region. So there's a lot of belly space that we can maximize. So teleport is maximizing it. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of AirAsia in terms of from a logistics perspective. And then our shop is from an e-commerce angle. You can order it from whichever you are, and then you can have it delivered on board or when you arrive at a certain airport. So it's about maximizing what we have in the ecosystem. And what's connecting all this is BigPay, which is our financial technology platform, enabling the easiest way for you to move in different currencies and whatnot. And Big Loyalty is from miles perspective, and how that can be transformed into something more valuable. So the whole ecosystem on the Red Bit Ventures is how you look at the entire adjacency of an airline, which was predominantly ancillaries, a side margins to the business, but we are amplifying this to become one of the significant margin generator for AirAsia. In fact, we are investing in technologies within the ecosystem of the airlines, within the ecosystem of gas and moving people from A to Z. So what's next? Hence, I'm putting the middle bucket as the most important positioning of AirAsia moving forward, AirAsia.com. So we are entering the platform game. So what people tend to say, the super app, the super platform. So moving forward, our competitors would no longer be just the airlines. The competitors will be the likes of Traveloka, the likes of Expedia. It's all about channeling the right crowd to the platform, to the website, and maximize what we can have. If you were to click at AirAsia.com right now, you will see 6 different tiles. So whatever you want to do in terms of journey, you can pretty much purchase it there. Not just buying AirAsia tickets, your excursions, how you move from A to Z and things like that. So moving forward, it's not just the hotels, it's not just the excursion. We will also be putting other airlines into the ecosystem, hence maximizing the entire platform. So it may sound simple, but there's a lot of moving platforms, and it's a lot of pieces that's moving together in order for us to come into these three nice buckets to integrate. It's not just the external parties, it's also within the internal ecosystem. The critical part of gelling it together is obviously technology, digital, and all the elements that is able to shape the business that we're looking at moving forward. Our journey towards being digital and being a data-driven company started from an end state of trying to get the best cost per unit for the airline and the operations, hence being able to give very low rates and that you have to pay as a passenger. Hence the usage of the data is focused towards on two main areas, cost reduction, bringing down as cost as possible, as efficient as possible, and obviously that will have a direct correlation for the revenue gain. So by using that, we realize there's a lot of data that we've been leveraging, and there's a lot of things that we have yet to tap that could be a much bigger potential for what's going to be the AirAsia 3.0. So some of the sharings I put here is, the verticals that we used to work on, we used to focus on, which now has, amplified to 10x in terms of areas that we look at. But it's all about focusing the journey to AirAsia 3.0. I want to take some time on this next slide because I think I'm looking to people in the room. I'm not preaching to the non-converts. So everyone is sold in terms of the role of technology, the role of AI, the role of big data analytics, and what kind of tools. But I think I don't want to be sharing more in terms of the tools that we use, but I think how we're looking at BDA, how we're looking at machine learning and AI across the entire sphere of AirAsia. Obviously, we started from a very specific angle on cost and revenue, but then we realized it's important that we connect all the dots within the universe of AirAsia in order for it to work. So we have this ambitious end state that every single feed of information, it is coming from passengers, it is coming from employees, it is coming from our assets, engines, aircraft, it is coming from the infrastructure that we deal with, the airports, all the moving pieces at the airports. Everything goes into a cloud that we process all the data, where we have multiple machine learning and artificial intelligence able to process, sanitize the data, and churn it into much greater usage in the future. As of now, we're looking at it from a holistic way because we realize it has to start with the DNA of the company. It has to start with the people. So since a year ago, we've moved to a G Suite environment. We have everything on the cloud. It was a tough move for the employees. So it may look simple, moving from Microsoft Office to Google Sheets, but it was quite a significant task for us from a change perspective. And this is the start, the beginning of much more leap within the organization because they realized that whatever that you've been doing from a day-to-day as an employee is feeding into the larger picture of AirAsia. The same goes to the infrastructure. How we are partnering airports, how we are taking a quantum leap in terms of fronting facial recognition before airports are doing it, and the usage of IoT devices in tracking our assets to ensure that not just predictive maintenance but prescriptive maintenance is able to be applied. So these are some of the AI platform that we currently have in house, but these are a non-exhaustive list. Obviously we work with partners such as Airbus on the Skywise, and GE is pretty much our engine supplier. But it's all about how we are able to have a consolidated approach in the long run, that being able to extract all the data. So with all these moving pieces, the question is being asked, how are we going to do this? How are we going to implement it? Technology may sound easy from a believer's, from perspective of practitioner. But if you look across the ecosystem of AirAsia, you're preaching it to the senior management, to the pilots, to the ground handlers, and everyone throughout the food chain. It's important for us to be able to put it in a chunkable piece that is understandable. Hence, we introduce what we call, as part of the transformation name, we call SCAP. It's a common word within the region. It means efficient in Bahasa Malaysia, Bahasa Melayu, it applies in Indonesia, so it carries almost the same meaning in Tagalog as well. So what is actually CCAP? CCAP is our way in trying to implement what the vision that we have. It's our solution in this, and it's our answer to ideation. It's our answer to design thinking. It's our answer from continuous improvement. It's our answer for Lean Six Sigma. And it's our answer to have an agile organization, because it comes on a very simple 5 steps in terms of what you want to do. I say ideation to commercialization, have a very efficient process improvement, and have a very effective delivery of execution. So we clarify the problem, starting with C, establish the team members. This is where a lot of agile principles, open space meetings, Scrum happens here. And we keep focus on the root cause where the learning metrics happens. Alignment and execute is where the MVP happens. There's a lot of testing, iteration, ideation, and then you proceed and pivot. So this allows, depending on which the audience in the organization, we are able to translate it in a much simpler way, and we can even go to several levels below, because there's a lot of principles that, for example, not everyone will be excited to hear the DMAC principle that is being used in Lean Six Sigma. Design thinking, if you go through the whole journey, it might be complicated to solve. So this is able to encapsulate what we're trying to do across the organization. So we've been executing a number of things in the organization across with the 5 impact centers, and one of it is clearly digital transformation to support our journey moving forward. So I mentioned earlier about the role of AI and how we've been leveraging technology in the organization. I think our founder and group CEO, Tony Fernandez, always preach the role of technology and how the need of it to become efficient. So I would like to introduce you to Eva. Her hair has a strand of purple color. Take a guess which nationality. She speaks 11 different languages. And what started with Eva is a AI-based chatbot. So it may sound, there's a lot of chatbot application out there. You can choose to leverage on the common AI platform and get the AI to learn over time in terms of the aviation language, or you can go to specific AI that is focused on aviation and airlines. But how we're seeing Eva, the pretext of all that we're trying to do is the CX driving the DX. So customer happiness and customer experience is very critical for AirAsia. As we go through the journey of digital transformation, we are ensuring that whatever it is, the solutioning, the end product will be focusing on the customer happiness. In fact, we are taking a much bolder approach by even amplifying how we coin customer experience. It's not just customer happiness, it's guest obsession. So a lot of this check-up iteration that I made earlier allow us to test the market, test the product before we go live, we go to commercialization with passengers to ensure that whatever that we implement would have a positive impact to passengers and to customers. So for example, this has been launched a few months ago. Eva can do, now has been doing about 75% of what our call centers used to do. In fact, we're shutting down all the call centers, and Eva is able to entertain to all the questions and queries 24/7, can make your bookings, any additional purchase in terms of ancillaries, changes to your flights and whatnot. And we obviously religiously track the NPS score, Net Promoter Score, in terms of how people are responding to a chatbot versus a real-life conversation. So for the period of last 3 months, the score has increased from 60% to 90% in terms of the average waiting time and satisfaction index for the customers. One thing that's really interesting that we didn't realize, because obviously AI is quite is expensive in terms of investment, and we can't run away from the conversation of ROI and IRR when this was presented to the board. We had some calculation in terms of how this could work into the how it can impact the bottom line in the long run. But if you compare, this is data as good as last month. For August 2019, ancillary sales increased 100% compared to 12 months ago, when it was purely dealt by call agents in comparison to 100% dealt by Ava. So this is a very good impact for us, because we were doing this pretty much from an efficiency perspective. We didn't realize the monetization element happens much sooner. Again, the epicenter of what I'm trying to share is technology comes in various kind of ways, but we are really ensuring that the right set of technology is being embraced within the organization. And I think for us not to be a slave of artificial intelligence just for the sake of riding the bandwagon, but most importantly, how it fits into our customers and guest perspective. With that, thank you very much for the time that I have.